Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So, Joe KARP, as I was saying, one of my favorite people in the whole world, and also who's been the longest person working with us on our radio show and on our magazine, Boomer Times. Welcome to our show again, Joe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Once every 20-some-odd years, you can have technical problems.
That's right. We've done pretty well over the years, haven't we?
Yes.
So, this has been very interesting. When I, read your column, and you've been doing part 1, part 2, part 3, because you know that people don't really understand anything about elder law. And there are I can't tell you the people that complain to me about this or that, and they say, I didn't know that. Well, if you went to Joe KARP's seminars, you know more. You may not know everything, but you know a lot more, right?
Yeah, and I'm finding, unfortunately, a lot of professionals don't know that, and a lot of pseudo-professionals don't know that. And I get people who come into my office who have been given bad advice. Sometimes they're given that advice by friends, relatives, and neighbors. Sometimes they're given that advice by well-intentioned professionals like lawyers, accountants, or financial planners who just think they know the law based upon what they've read in the newspaper. And sometimes they're given that advice that people who are not professionals but hold themselves out as experts in Medicaid or VA benefits, and they are not licensed, and they're basically doing an unauthorized practice of law. And some of them are charlatans who are not looking to give good advice. They're looking to give saleable advice and charge a fee and move on. So we try to give people the I don't know that, I didn't know that. I had a lady in the other day who hired somebody to do VA benefits for her husband who's home. He's going to end up in a nursing home, but he's currently home, and this person said they can get him VA benefits. They'll apply for it. First of all, and she had gotten the name, by the way, legitimately from an assisted living and independent living facility, because they don't know who knows what. They just met this person who said, we do this, we can help your residents, we can help them get benefits. And first of all, she was charging a fee to do a VA benefits application, because she said, oh, there's no preparation, you don't have to do anything. And she paid $500, which is certainly a nominal fee, but maybe that should have rung out as a problem. But the people were way over income and asset limits for the VA. The person will never get VA benefits unless the person putting in the application just patently does not give all the information. So I didn't know that, sort of trying to clear up some of the mistakes and confusion that people hear. And some of the stuff, there's legitimate reasons. The laws for Medicaid vary from state to state, and everybody thinks of it like Medicare. Well, it's all the same because it's a federal program. Well, there are differences because the state does not participate in Medicare, right? That's your insurance. That's strictly a federal program. Florida doesn't kick in a nickel. Once states start kicking in a nickel for Medicaid, they have the right to make some of their own rules as long as they don't violate the federal rules. And that's where the confusion lies. So, for example, if you're on, I'll do the first I didn't know that from this month's Boomer Times.
Right.
If you're in New York or New Jersey, by example, I don't know every other state, and your spouse or you go on Medicaid, I don't know the rules actually if you're a single individual, whether your home is exempt in those states. Well, if you're a single individual, I'm not sure because I don't practice actively there. Even though I'm licensed in New York, I just never gave up my license 40 years ago. I don't practice there. The state of New York or New Jersey will be able to go after your home when you die to be reimbursed for the money that they paid out for you. That doesn't mean they get your home, but if they spent $100,000 on your Medicaid, or your spouse's Medicaid, conceivably in those states, they're going to get their $100,000 back before the kids get the money from the house. That's a general rule. I'm not giving specifics there, but they have the right to go after the house post-mortem. In Florida, your homestead is an exempt asset for Medicaid so long as you intend to return home. Now, the interesting thing is intent and ability are two different things. You could have a semi-comatose person, and you know they want to be home. They don't want to be in a nursing home, right?
Absolutely not.
Everybody wants to be home. They may want to, their picture may be being home and healthier, but they want to be home. So as long as you intend to return home and take no steps in furtherance of making that an impossibility, and health is not one of them, but sign a 10-year lease with somebody, that's pretty much showing you're not planning on coming home, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you intend to return home, it's an exempt asset, or if you're married and your spouse is there, or if you have a minor or disabled child living there, the house is exempt. But even if you're a widow or widower, if you're going into the nursing home, that home is generally going to, your homestead will generally be exempt in Florida. Now, the next question is, what happens when you die? When you die, again, if you're married, it's just going to go to your spouse. Don't even worry about it. There's no recovery by the state. But suppose you're a single individual when you die. If you leave your homestead to what are deemed your constitutional heirs at law, and it's a broad list, I'll give you a general idea, then it's exempt from creditors, including Medicaid. And those heirs at law are your spouse, your kids, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, a whole bunch of family members. As long as you leave it to them, Medicaid has no recovery. They'll file a claim, and then you say, no, this is homestead property. You have to go through the court and show that the claim is not a valid claim against the property. People blow that all the time, sometimes because they sell the house while the person's she's going into the nursing home, the state will take the house, so we'll sell it. Sometimes they have to sell it for other reasons, because the state doesn't let the resident of the nursing home use that money to pay the mortgage, the HOA, the property taxes, the maintenance, and all of that stuff. So the family would have to cover it, or whoever's the spouse would have to cover it. The other thing is, every once in a while we see, when I die, sell everything and give it to my 3 kids. Well, that also blows the homestead protection post-mortem, because they didn't leave the kids the homestead, did they?
Joe,
they
I'm going to jump in.
Of a sale.
I need to jump in because people say to me, you let this man talk and we don't know who he is. And that's true. I get you started. So I'm going to do this. So it's Joe KARP, who is an elder law, a wonderful elder law attorney who is licensed to do that. And it's the KARP Law Firm, and the phone number is 561-625-1100. So so I need to do that because Joe is so smart, and he has seminars. We're going to talk about those seminars after he finishes his a few more paragraphs here, because I don't want people not to know about your October seminars. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I needed to do that.
That's fine. We can tell them. And by the way, any lawyer who's licensed can practice elder law. If they're not certified, they're not experts. And I am certified, and we work as a team in my office. But anyway, So if you say sell everything, and it says sell the house, then you haven't left the kids the homestead. You've left them the proceeds of the sale, and Medicaid gets paid back before the kids see a nickel. So even how you draft a simple will can be very important. But the most important thing is people don't know the real facts. They know what they believe that they've read in the newspaper. They've heard certain stories from friends and relatives. And sometimes it's because they'll hear it, and it happens. Somebody will say, well, when my mother went in a nursing home, this is what happened. Well, we don't know where she went in the nursing home, what date and time, because rules keep changing. So even if they went in a nursing home in Palm Beach County, they may have gone in October 2017, and the rules have changed since then. So the rules are a moving target, and people have to know that. They should read your wonderful, wonderful Boomer Times. There's not only my columns, but there are other interesting columns that give them information that they didn't know.
Joe, thank you, but I wanted also to tell you, I've heard more times now lately of people who live down here, and of course their families are still up north and they're passing away, and things, it's very difficult to function from down here, take care of everything up there. It's been, and I don't know what the solution is.
Well, you're talking about the relatives up north pass away?
Yes.
Here's the deal. Whether you're in Florida and you pass away and your family has to take care of things, or they're up north and you're down here and they pass away, the keys to that are, number one, share information. Stop being private. Let your kids or your relatives know where you bank, where you broker, what's going on. Let them understand about your assets. If you're close to that, too many of my clients forget that their children are 50. Their children have been designated as their backups as power of attorney, healthcare surrogates, all of that, but they don't want to tell them about their money that the kids are going to get. So there's just total confusion. There's a lot of denial, first of all, privacy, but the kids aren't 13. Share information. If you're not going to share it, at least what we do is give people a place to document it and say, look, my law firm gave me all of my documents. I have them in this binder. I also have copies of information. I've written down information as to where I bank, where I broker, account numbers, etc. Share the information and get some of the legal documents in their hands. If you don't want them to know who's getting what money when you're dead, that's fine. But somebody should know who's the health surrogate, what are the rights. Does the health surrogate have a copy of the paperwork so they can get it to the doctor or the hospital? Should not be bashful with that kind of information. Then you've done the planning, but you haven't given anybody information so they don't know who can do it. And I instruct my clients to do it. In fact, my clients now get a flash drive of their documents so they can email everybody the healthcare surrogate. They can email the power of attorney. They can email the trust or portions of it so everybody knows who's in charge and share information. It makes it a lot easier. Also, talk about what you want done. Talk about your realities. Talk about your desires for health care. What is your standard for quality of life? And as it changes, because it does, because I remember my uncle saying, if I can't drive, shoot me. Well, he got macular degeneration. Right. He got macular degeneration. He couldn't drive, but he didn't want to be shot. He thought living was a pretty good idea. So as life changes, be realistic about it and say, I know I slowed down. That's okay. He was terrific right until the end. And he shared his feelings about how he wanted his health taken care of.
Okay, but wait, there's
funeral arrangements.
Okay, but that's arrangements. But I want to talk about something, the practical part of all this. So let's say that, and I've had a not my personally, but a relationship where a person here is trying to sell the house up north, is trying to sell the car, and you see, it's just too difficult from down here. Now, should they have a lawyer like you up there? Should they have? What should they do?
it depends on, number one, most times people who are handling an affairs of a decedent need to at least see a lawyer to see what legally must be done, what are their rights, their duties, and obligations, because the decedent's final income tax return should be paid and things like that. There may be probate, there may have been probate avoidance processes. And if they talk to a lawyer who does elder law and estate planning on a regular basis, and it's where the decedent lived, so they need the lawyer up in New York or in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, if that's what happened, to find out what the protocols are and what is required in that jurisdiction. And sometimes even the world is so parochial, what's the rules in Westchester might vary from Nassau County in terms of some protocols. And then you say, I need somebody, a good real estate broker, to help me sell this house. I need to meet with one or speak with one. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to clear it out, because you're not going to sit there every weekend with a for sale by owner sign.
Exactly.
Because you're doing it. And you want a real estate broker, depending on your circumstances. How do we clean out the house? How do we clean up
exactly.
the house?
That's what I was getting at.
And they should talk to a good lawyer who's experienced in that community to help facilitate and give them that advice. That's the kind of advice we give when the children or the nieces or nephews come in, or even the spouse or the local children come in. We say that, do you know anyone? Because they may say, my mother's next door neighbor in the condo said her sister wants to buy my mother's condo. What do you think? I say, well, I think you should at least talk to a real estate person to see what fair market value is, and then evaluate that, because frequently the sister wants to steal it and doesn't want to pay fair market value.
Oh, God.
Now, the stealing it may be worthwhile, and I tell that to the people, because if she'll take it as is and you're not screwing around with worrying about paying the HOA and dealing with all the garbage, et cetera, you just want to get the stuff out of the house, you're willing to sell it, you're not going to pay a broker's commission, you're not going to go through 6 or 8 weeks or months of waiting for a buyer, you're not going to have to paint the place, it's going to be an as-is deal, it's off your back and it's done. There are advantages to that, but you have to weigh those out versus, is the place worth $2.25 and she's offering you $129? I don't think so. But if the place is worth $135 and she's offering you $129, jump on it. So there has to be those evaluations. We know companies that will help pack up all the items so that you can get that house more saleable. There's a company right now that just does a phenomenally interesting job. Know what they do?
What?
They photograph everything that they are packing it up. This is what they do. They then put it in storage. Every box is marked. The photographs are now put online with identification for each piece. So it's box number 23, piece number piece number 14. That's online. So the person in charge says, okay, pull out that piece, send it to my cousin Shirley. And they can do that for you, so they can clean and inventory everything. Or just say, this stuff is dreck, give it to a charity or a thrift store or throw it out. So they can even do stuff like that to speed things up. And it all depends what people's priorities are.
Yep. Very clever. And I know that you do all this type of, it's the extra, I'm going to call it the extras that people don't think about, and they're not going to say that when they're doing a will, but you must ask people these questions, but not all attorneys do that. They just provide the will, the trust, but this is it's the aftermath. It's so important. It's like when you have a hurricane. It's, you're all prepared, but then what happens after the hurricane?
And it's before the hurricane where somebody says, I have water, and you say, well, how much? And they say, well, I bought 2-gallon bottles, and you say, that's not enough. You address all the issues preemptively, so you try to figure out how to avoid the significant problems. You make sure, because, for example, I I say to people who come in and they have one kid, I say, and you see that it's a very limited nuclear family and a very small family. I say, we're going to have one big problem here that you have not addressed with. And they say, what's that? I say, what if your daughter can't serve or your daughter predeceases you? And they say, we never thought of that. It's not uncommon. That's just such a unforgivable thought to have. They won't even allow it. So they've never dealt with it. Or, my daughter doesn't need any money because her husband does well. I say, you ever hear of divorce?
Joe, let's take. Excuse me, Joe. I think we have to rush to the seminars. Want to go through those, or I can do it?
Sure, I've got them. I warned everybody that we would not be doing seminars in September, but we are going back in October and doing them. And the workshops are our senior survival workshops, and they're on our website, which is KARP, KARP law.com. If you want to look them up, there's no appointments necessary. Just show up and bring a sweater. We talk about estate planning. We talk about Medicaid. We talk about VA benefits. We talk about what you can do. And the first seminar is in Palm Beach Gardens, Tuesday, October 15th at the PGA Marriott Hotel on RCA Boulevard, right off Palm Beach PGA Boulevard. It starts at 1:30, ends around 4. On Wednesday, October 16th, at the Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton Beach. We're there at 1:30, and we go till 4. And then in Port St. Lucie, we couldn't get anything that week, so it's the following week, Wednesday, October 23rd, at the Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. And that's 1:30 in the afternoon in Port St. Lucie, the same thing. These seminars are open to the public, and there's things, not only do we talk about the things that you didn't know, but we also do a couple of other things. We offer attendees whom we think we can help a free consultation to review their existing estate plan and to see whether they want to switch into a trust, or if they have a trust, to make sure the trust is consistent with their needs and desires, since the laws keep changing, and they do that. We also offer them Medicaid consults. If they're there and they make their appointment, they'll be entitled to a free consult for that if they need it. And we try to give some clarity to unclear issues and clear up some of the stuff. The assumptions that people make are frightening when they find out that they can't do it. And it applies to all age groups who need to be taken care of. So it's an important thing to attend to, learn, and get done. Because when people come into my office and they're in crisis, I can't just stop everything else. I've got prior obligations, so it's not just, my husband's sick and we don't have a health care surrogate and the doctors won't talk to me. Well, hello. You expect us to stop everything, do everything in a rush, run to a hospital, have your husband sign it, assuming he's not comatose, right?
Right.
And then we're going to get that done. Oh, and you think it's $50. Okay, well, welcome to the real world. Poor planning on your part can be catastrophic. No planning is poor planning. If you have estate planning documents, we tell people to have them reviewed every 3 years to make sure it's consistent with their beliefs, their desires, etc. So can't impress it upon people enough. Always take care.
Joe, I know we're going to be running out of time shortly, but I just have to share this with everyone that, excuse me, I don't know what's going on here. I never lose my voice. But I want to just say that you are unique, and I know that because I deal with a lot of lawyers and other kind of people. And you just take this like you're almost the sun. And that's the most wonderful part, that you just absolutely Just drank some water. That you absolutely go above and beyond a lawyer's typical responsibilities. And I guess that's inborn in you. And I remember, and I hope we have enough time for me just to cover this, that you took care of your mother, you and your brother, took care of your brothers or your brother?
Yes, brothers.
Brothers. Took care of your mother because she was in a state there, which was not a state, but a condition. And I do remember how loving and how caring and how smart you were about that. I think that led you to what you do now. I may be wrong, but I just got that feeling.
It may be. And the other thing I want to say is the lawyers in my office or the way I hired them. I hired one attorney, and she had been a nurse who became a lawyer. And I said, why did you leave nursing to become a lawyer? And she said, I went into law for the same reason I went into nursing. I wanted to help people. The rest of the interview was BS because she had the job. and I always tell my lawyers, think it out. So, for example, an interesting thing happened. We got a letter that a client of ours, we heard the client of ours died, and there was no need for probate. Everything was structured, and we filed the will with the court. We then get a letter from a lawyer that I know that he was contacted by her son who wanted a copy of the will. And since the will had already been filed, as a courtesy, I sent it to him because I'm not a nasty guy. I'm not going to say, well, you can go to the court and get it. I said, here's a copy of the will. And in the will, and I remembered this happening, Kara was the attorney. In meeting with the lady tells us everything she wants to do, and we do it. And she lists her daughter as her only child. And we just take it for granted. Well, when she came in to sign, Kara went it over with her, and she said, I'm cutting out my son. Kara said, we got to stop. Add him to the will. We're cutting him out. We want him to know.
And we have to cut you out, Joe.
And we did. And that'll save a lot of lawsuits because it's now mentioned in the will.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a happy New Year for those of you who celebrate. And
Thank
for those
you, Joe.
who don't celebrate, enjoy the New Year anyway. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Talk to you again. Bye.